Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Relatable Radio Hour with me, Dr. Green. Thank you so very much for joining. We have a great guest with us tonight and has just an amazing journey that I think you will definitely be inspired by. And I'll introduce him in just a moment. But you know, it's always a thing for us as people to transform, especially when we want to enter new seasons and new portions of our life. And I know a lot of you all are currently in a season where you know that you need to transform, you know that you need or desire a sense of change in yourself. And sometimes it takes a lot of encouragement to see that through. And it takes a lot of, I don't know, just a lot of that stick to itiveness to get through those types of challenges. But I think tonight's guest will kind of help you wherever you are on your journey to transform, and give you some good inspiration on how he managed to do that. And so, with that being said, I would like to introduce tonight's guest, Dr. Antoine Jenkins. Dr. Jenkins, how are you doing, sir?
Hey there. Hey, how's it going? I'm well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, man. So happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what's brought you here tonight.
Oh man, a little bit about me. Let's see, where should I start? I guess I'll start from the beginning. Uh, so, as you mentioned, my name is Antoine Jenkins. I am born and raised in Gary, Indiana. All right, little town there, Gary, Indiana, born and raised. Uh,
That's where Michael Jackson is from.
that's where
I got to
Michael
interject.
Jackson is from.
That's a big people don't know that Gary Indiana. That's the home of the Jackson Five and the Jacksons. That's like a
Absolutely.
okay,
Absolutely. We lived
cool.
about maybe 10, 15 minutes away from where their house used to be.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, so born and raised there. Uh, in terms of, I guess I'll start with career. I'm a pharmacist. So I've been a pharmacist since 2005. Very passionate about that. Um, Specifically, educating others as relates to their meds and dispelling myths about medications, things of that sort. Um, I am married, have two children, two boys, a 25-year-old and a 15-year-old. Been married for 16 years. Um, and that in and of itself has been a journey. Being a husband and being a father,
Yeah.
definitely has been a journey, an enjoyable journey nonetheless.
Yeah.
Um, let's see a little bit more about me. And yeah, kind of like you mentioned, I'm here today to kind of talk about um, my journey as it relates to transformation. I'm a huge believer in terms of one involving him or herself, um, specifically Black men, um, because we can be so stagnant and stubborn at times. And I can
Hmm.
say this because one, I'm a Black man, and two, I was once
Hmm.
there. And there's a lot of things that we were taught as
Hmm.
Black men, especially, us Gen Xers, that we need to really try to begin to unravel and unlearn. So I'm here today to kind of share my journey with that, um, and just kind of talk about where I used to be mentally and how that impacted me physically.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I said, I'd love to share my story with the masses.
Yeah, yeah. And I really appreciate you for being here to share it on this platform. I never want to discredit anyone on their journey, but just being vulnerable, being transparent, open, and honest, I really appreciate you for being able to do that.
Hmm.
Um, you spoke about, where you once were. We see where you are now. You shared with us where you are now. But kind of talk to us a little bit about where you once were as opposed to where you are now, and just kind of talk to us about that mindset that you had about yourself at that time.
Sure. So growing up, I was a skinny kid. And, back during my day, it was a punishment to be inside. So we stayed outside all day played all day, ride bikes. I mean, you name it, we did it. We played kickball, football, basketball, piggy, all those things.
Hmm.
And it seemed like back in those days, you could eat whatever you want to eat and burn it off.
Those
And
were
I can
those
recall,
times. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. Your mom have to literally say, "Come eat."
Right.
Right. Come to eat.
Right.
But then we went right back outside. So
Yeah.
I guess for years I had the pleasure of having a rapid metabolism. But once you reach a certain age, those things start to slow down a bit. I guess for me, and I guess my story is probably no different than many others. College, those things start to slow down a bit. Um, and you start doing more things as it relates to that's kind of the opposite of what healthy is, especially in college. So that may involve a bit more drinking, staying out late, that sort of thing. So the culmination of all those things from a physical standpoint can in fact be impactful. And so what happens, in most situations is that folks gain weight. And I was certainly no exception to that. And so that's kind of been, a trajectory of mine probably since college. But I became cognizant of it. So I always would know I would need to make changes. And I did do so. But those changes weren't consistent changes. So it's like I may lose some weight and gain it right back. So I went through this long period of ups and downs as it relates
Mm.
to weight. And that kind of eats away at your psyche a bit. But as men, as black men, we're taught not to talk about those things,
Hmm.
either directly or indirectly. That's not something you talk about. I mean, a woman can talk about her weight gain and it's fine, but if a man
Hmm.
does it, he's looked at funny. So
Hmm.
what I did what a lot of men will do is just kind of internalize it. So as the years rolled along, that's pretty much been my journey, especially after marriage. Start having kids, and just dealing with the different things in life, from your career, dealing with the marriage, dealing with just juggling all those responsibilities and kids. You know, you kind of put yourself to the back burner. So I ultimately got up to about 360 pounds. So I'm 6'3", 360 pounds. And it, you know, absolutely began to affect how I look. I used to hate to take photos. I used to, whenever I did take a photo, you go do that sucking in your stomach and all
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that.
Stand up
You
straight,
go,
hold it, hold
right.
it in. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Holding it in, you go do the shirt pull down to make sure you're good.
The whole
Like, I
nine
mean, what are you
yards.
hiding?
All of it. Yes.
Right. You're doing all that. And I was no stranger to that.
Yeah.
Although I didn't do the white towel that I see some
Oh
guys
yeah.
do. I
Yeah. Yeah.
never got to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. They put it on the shoulder, man. They hold it like,
Yeah,
dab
yeah,
it.
exactly.
That's a thing.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Well, that's good that you didn't do that. But that.
Yeah, I wasn't the sweaty type, thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness. But nonetheless, I gained a pretty considerable amount of weight. So that, of course, had negative impacts on my health, ranging from the typical stuff that Black folks tend to suffer from. Hypertension, high cholesterol. I was dealing with sleep apnea, that sort of thing. Um, and I was kind of on that road to developing diabetes. I guess the term for that would be pre-diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
But that scared me. That really scared me. So in the midst of all that, though, I was telling myself I'm fine because I was still pretty mobile
Mm-hmm.
and I was still pretty limber almost, because
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy because I love to bike ride too. So I would, even at that weight, I would ride my bike for miles and not necessarily get tired. So it was like I knew I was in, I had this heavy weight, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just like it was certain things, such as the fact that I was able to ride a bike for a prolonged period of time, that made me say to myself, "I'm good. Yeah,
Mm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
I weigh this amount, but I'm good."
Mm-hmm.
So I, that went on for another few years though, and then ultimately one day I woke up and I said to myself, I said, "You know, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of how I look." So I decided to make some changes. And that's kind of where my story began. In 2017, I feel like it's
Mm.
weird things really start to happen.
So, how long would you say you had been in that space? I know you said in 2017 is when you started to make that change. So, how long of a stretch of time would you say that it kind of progressed to get to that point?
Mm, Probably I'd say from 2006 to 2017,
So, about 11 years.
about 11 years of just being in the space of telling myself I'm okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm all right, I'm
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
But deep down, I really wasn't. And it began to really impact my self esteem and just how I viewed myself. And yeah, it just really impacts your whole mental well being, and you become a shell of yourself.
You really do.
And it's like, who is this guy?
Right.
And then being married to, this is something else that oftentimes not talked about. Um, and don't get me wrong, as it relates to a marriage, you have your husband, you have your wife dynamic, your husband or your spousal dynamic, whatever the case may be, and both parties are given of themselves. And I don't want to say that you know women don't do it and men do it and vice versa. Both parties are given of themselves, but oftentimes it's when the woman begins to talk about what she and I hope I'm not generalizing. This is just my experience of what I've seen.
Okay.
What when a woman is saying what she's going through, society hears it.
Um,
Society will make note of it. But as relates to men and what we're going through, society doesn't even ask.
mhm,
And we're taught to be these strong figures,
mhm,
and wear this Superman cape,
mhm,
and just to make
mhm.
others happy.
Right.
We're taught that. And I think we're taught it both in direct and indirect ways. But either way, it's something that men are taught.
Mhm,
And then men don't really vocalize it until they get around other married men. And
mhm,
we're all basically saying the same things.
mhm.
And I got to a point where I felt like my only role was to make others happy. And I got to a point where I felt my life was robotic.
Mhm.
Work, home, work, home, work, home, work, home. Got to be there for the family. Got to be for the family. Make sure my family's good. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But I got to a point where I forgotten who I was.
Mhm.
And I think one day that day in 2017, um, I said to myself, "Who are you?
Mhm.
Is this what marriage is like? This can't be it.
Yeah.
This really cannot be it, because I've given up so much of myself,
Yeah.
and I don't even recognize this person anymore." And that's the thing too. I haven't even verbalized it to anyone. Like, I haven't verbalized it to my wife. I didn't verbalize it to my wife. Um, a few of my friends knew, but I really didn't go into great depth. No one, and that's another thing. We're not Men don't typically go into great depth in terms of what they're feeling, what we're feeling. Um, so for the longest, I felt like I might have been functionally depressed, meaning I'm
Mhm.
going to do what I need to do because I got to survive. I got a whole family to take care of. But at the same time, inside, I'm not. I'm not good.
Mhm.
I'm telling myself I'm good, trying
Yeah.
to hype myself up.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I wasn't good.
Hmm. So there are so many things that you touched on that I think are really important for people to kind of hear, and I thank you for bringing it up. One
Welcome.
is that, as Black men, we don't really talk about weight. You talked about how, it's kind of looked down upon if a Black man talks about their weight, and that's so true. I don't know what that is about. And then, of course, just speaking about men in general, just our voices not being heard on certain things. It's that double standard where women can be expressive,
Mm-hmm.
especially as regards to their weights or things that bother them or that
That's
are a
exactly.
problem.
Yep.
But with men, it's not received the same.
Yep. Exactly.
And of course, you talking about, the depression and the mindset that you had just really kind of been giving yourself, that you were repressing your feelings
Mm-hmm.
and it just metamorphosizing into something that grew into, a real problem for you.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I think it's important to address that as a man, but not only a man, but as a Black man, to address all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yep.
I spoke with a few of my friends some weeks ago on how Black men are not all monolithic. We are not all the same.
Correct.
We're
Correct.
all very different, but it's
Correct.
taking a lot of these types of conversations to show just how diverse and different we as Black men can be. So again, I
Yep.
really appreciate you for sharing all of that. So, with you kind of recognizing in 2017 that you needed to make this change, I'm curious, when you did, decide to make that change, how was the support system for you so that you could see, the change that you wanted to, transform for yourself?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I smiled because, so I guess my support system would be my wife. Um, and I guess that's something else that we can talk about. Married couples and as it relates to fitness. So you do
Mm,
have those married couples in which there's, the husband and wife and they're both in it together and, you know, they're both in it, they're both on the same page. Great. But that's not always the case, right? So 2017, I decided I need to, if I want it different, I need to move different, right? So I wanted to do something I had never done before as it relates to me trying to get fit. So I decided to hire a certified personal trainer, something I had never done before, because I would work out on my own like most people would do,
right.
right? But there's a lot as it relates to fitness that the average person just doesn't know. It's more than just going in there trying to pick up a dumbbell or just getting on a machine. There's so many intricacies and nuances as it relates to how to use those items that the average person just doesn't know. And I had said to myself, I'm running out of stuff to do. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing the bench press. You know, most men go gravitate to chest stuff. So I'm doing bench press and all those other things. But I knew there was so much more out there. So I made the decision of hiring a certified personal trainer, and I just kind of did it on a whim without having that discussion with my spouse, and I just did it. So um, after I signed the contracts and everything, that's when I told her, and she was kind of taken aback that we didn't have a discussion. And I'm like, well, this is something I want to do. So I did it. So I told her about my aspirations. And she'll tell you now that at first she didn't really believe it. She said that she did, but she didn't really believe it. I was like, yeah, I think eventually I might want to go into bodybuilding.
Ah,
And she was just like, oh, okay. In her mind, she's like, oh, okay, yeah. But verbally, she's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah. But inside, she's like, yeah,
mhm.
whatever.
Right.
So after about 3 months of working with this trainer, I did start making some noticeable changes. And so she was like, whoa, you are looking different. I'm like, yeah, I told you I was serious about this. So that's when we actually started together, and she started working with the same trainer. Um, and she began her fitness journey at that point. So I tell her that we kind of essentially started at the same time, even though I began maybe about 90 days prior, roughly around the same time though. But so the support was there, but I will say, after a while, she kind of fell off,
Mhm.
but I pressed forward. So there would be moments in which I would notice she would get a bit of an attitude whenever I would go to the gym or say I'm working out. Um, I knew the support ultimately was there, but I
Right.
still had to contend with that. Yeah, you know what I
Mhm. Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
But I said to myself that this is something I need to do for me,
Yeah.
and I can't let, you know, whatever she's thinking impact what I'm doing. So I just kind of continue forward. And, you know, 2019 is when um, I entered my first bodybuilding competition. So um, I had to demonstrate not just to myself, but also to her that, I was serious about it. So it's been a staple, ever since then. Um, but the support was there. Don't get me wrong, but there were moments in which I kind of had to deal with, just a little bit of the attitude,
Mhm. Mhm.
just a little bit. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're changing, but you know, and I know I need to make some changes too, but I got all this other stuff going on.
Right.
So I feel like sometimes spouses will go through that. If you have one spouse who's really devoted and the other spouse who's just kind of like wishy washy with it, the
Mhm.
person who's wishy washy, they'll give support, but it may not be just a complete, yeah, yeah, do it, do it, do it. It's going to be
Right.
a little bit of, little side
Right. Right. Right.
eye.
Right. Right. Well, I think it's important to bring that part up, not just with like the spouse side, but I think anybody that's going through those changes of any kind, as it relates to weight loss or anything like that, there are going to be people in your life that really try to hinder you
Oh, yeah.
with side comments or anything that will try to tear you down from accomplishing something. Well, really anything, any type of goal. They're going to be the naysayers and people that, just kind of put those, seeds of, maybe not full support, but, just that little bit. And it doesn't have
You're
to be your
right.
spouse, it could be anybody, in your life.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to bring that up because even as you're striving to achieve this new weight loss and transformation and becoming a bodybuilder, you saw it yourself, in
Oh,
those things.
yeah.
So I think it's important to bring that part of it up.
Absolutely. And to your point, body shaming actually goes on both sides of the
Oh,
fence.
yes. Yes.
Oftentimes people will think just because you have an obese person, a person who's overweight, there's body shaming there. But there's also body shaming on the other side of things because I can recall I may go to a person's house for a party or whatever, and they got all this food and stuff prepared. And me in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to such and such's house, right? And I know what they do. I know how to get down as it relates to food. I mean, they can throw
Mhm.
down. So let me eat beforehand so that way when I get over there, I'm not hungry. And this was especially the case too when I was, in prep mode for my show. So I was like, let me eat beforehand, bring me some water, so that way when I get there, I'm good. I'm not tempted.
Yeah,
So people get offended when you don't eat the food.
they do. They do.
They get offended. They get mad. Oh man, what I made is healthy. No, no it's not. With this all this butter, that's not healthy, man.
Right.
Or they say, "Oh man, you're not drinking." No, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not
Yeah.
drinking. But
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you used to. Yeah, I know I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
However, right now I'm not. So
Yeah.
it actually goes on it actually goes on both sides of the fence. People
Mhm.
really don't realize that.
It does. And you're right about that. I was just kind of laughing in my head because I have a good friend who's a bodybuilder, William. He's been on the show, and he would like bring, like you just said, he would bring his food to
Yeah.
like gatherings so that he wouldn't
Hmm.
even, be tempted to eat the stuff that was at the parties. Because typically, yeah, there's going to be unhealthy foods there. And if
Hmm.
you're really cognizant about your weight and what you're doing with it, you're gonna want to make sure that you are taking the proper precautions so that you
Yep.
don't, make those side effects. So
Yep.
um, that takes a lot of discipline too to be able
It
to do.
does. Hmm.
Um, and also, I don't know if you remember this show, The Biggest Loser used to come on NBC.
Yep. I remember that.
It was a competition where, people who were, you know, really overweight, they
Yep.
would come in and they would go on this ranch and they would, lose an excessive amount of weight. And in the process, as they were shedding off the pounds, and you mentioned this earlier about the depression that you kind of saw in yourself, they would be kind of transforming mentally and breaking down, kind of some of those things, those inner traumas that were occurring in their lives as they
Yep.
were losing the weight. So it was like a full circle
Yep.
experience. While you were going through, your transformation and trying to lose the weight, how did that work for you as it relates to, kind of cutting out the depression or some of the inner things that you had kind of noticed within yourself, through those 11 years or so?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it really helped for my life to seem not as mundane
Oh, yeah.
and not as robotic and not as scripted. It's like I mentioned, I just felt like my job, my roles was to go to work, go home, may go out on occasion, but that was really on occasion. Um, I had kind of withdrew from activities that I once enjoyed. You and I were both in fraternities. Um, One's a little bit better than the other, but I'm not going
Yeah,
to go.
you're right. Yeah, that's right.
Not going to go there.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely yes.
uh, and I had even withdrew from that, and
Mm,
that's been a staple for me since what 1997.
mm,
So I had even withdrew from being active within my fraternity. So, but as I began to lose weight and begin to get my confidence back, things began to shift, and things that I was previously no longer really interested in, suddenly I found those interests again and picked up some new interests kind of along the way.
hmm
So for me, just that transformation, that physical transformation for me was more than just the physicalities. It
hmm
really just had an overarching, huge impact on just my whole outlook on life. How I plan to just move forward. And it really taught me the value of evolution and how important evolving is. A lot of times as adults, we think just because we're quote unquote grown,
hmm
we can't learn anything new.
Right.
And that's silly. That's a silly way of thinking.
Yeah.
Um, so it really just kind of taught me the value of that as well. And it's got me thinking about a lot of different things now, things that I hadn't thought about before. But yeah, to answer your question though, I felt like as I began to, transform my body physically, it really just to help open up doors for me in other avenues that I didn't wasn't really expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I welcome it. I welcome the change. I welcome the evolution.
What are some of the things that you noticed about yourself as you went through that transformation? You went through that journey. What are some things that you learned about yourself in that?
I learned that I'm very persistent.
Mhm.
And I think I knew it, but it really became evident during that time. Um, because, like I said, I had kind of aspirations of becoming a bodybuilder. So coming from, weighing 360 pounds to being able to step on stage for the competition, that's huge. So I really had to think big picture and I really had to, accept small wins along the way. That's
Hmm.
important.
So
And
important.
I really just had to keep my eye on the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I really had to dispel that thinking, the societal thinking of instant gratification. Because if something is worth it, it's not always going to be immediate. I mean, I wish it was the case for a lot of things, but
Hmm.
as it relates to the majority of things, you're going to have to put in the work and put in the effort. So I think my persistence and determination and focus really became evident during that time. I think it's kind of always been there though, because I've always been pretty career driven, right?
Hmm.
I've always like enjoyed math and science and that sort of thing. So I knew I always wanted to go a healthcare route. So the road to become a pharmacist, it's not an easy road. So earning that PharmD degree definitely took some time.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I didn't really frame it as me being persistent to attain that. I don't know why, but as it relates to me in this change, I'm just like, wow, I'm really determined. I can
Hmm.
really focus and
Hmm.
think big picture and learn the art of delayed gratification.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what people as a whole really need to
Yeah.
take into account.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea that you can wake up the next day and everything is going to be solved or handled is
Yeah,
completely false. And we have this sense of, like you said, instant gratification. I call it the microwave generation,
yeah,
and that things are going to be, delivered in a quick,
hmm
easy to do type of process, and that is not life. That is
it's
not
not.
real life. That is very, very much not life.
It's not.
And so for you to, be able to, stand grounded in your results, you said something I think is so important. Celebrate those small wins.
Oh yeah,
We don't do that because we want to be able to get there, but it's
yeah,
like, nah, you gotta appreciate the small wins along the way while you get
yeah.
there.
hmm
That is so important. That keeps you motivated. I'm sure that kept you motivated to continue to go on through your process, which makes me want to ask you. You said you were, over 300 pounds. What was the weight that you had gotten to that surprised you, and you were like, "Oh wow, I'm like really killing." Like, what weight was it that you looked at on the scale that really just blew your mind that you had made it so far?
That's a great question, Dr. Green. I think once I got back into the 200s,
Hmm.
like in the 290s,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, oh my damn.
Yeah.
Does this scale really say 295 pounds? Like for real?
Wow. Wow. So
Yeah. So,
how many pounds was that from where you were at that point?
ooh,
How many
wee.
pounds had you lost at that point?
Mm. So starting at 360, it's
360.
gradual, right?
Yeah.
So, and I had gotten so used to seeing the threes. I'm trying to remember at what point did I finally see when I crossed over into the twos. And unfortunately, I can't remember exactly when. But when I did see it, like it really
Hmm.
took me by surprise because I had
Hmm.
gotten so used to seeing a three as the first
Hmm.
digit for so
Hmm.
long. To see a two as the first
Hmm.
digit, I was,
Hmm.
man.
I mean, to lose 70 pounds is a huge accomplishment. I mean, that's a
hmm
huge accomplishment to lose that much weight. So you in 2019, I think you said, is when
Yeah.
you had got on the stage
hmm
as a bodybuilder. I know I'm leaving out a lot of details from that point because it takes a lot. You've
Yeah.
shared your journey, but I know there's a lot of stuff that happened in between that time.
hmm
What was the weight that you were when you were on that stage?
I was 225 pounds.
Wow.
I hadn't been that weight, and I couldn't even tell you how long. But yeah, super lean, and it felt great. I couldn't believe I had gotten to that point. Um, but the thing is, And what people don't realize is that it's difficult to really maintain that, because when you're prepping for a show, you're
Of
doing some
course.
you're doing some things that, in terms of caloric restriction and all that, that you typically just aren't going to do,
Of course.
on a regular basis.
Right. Right.
So people think that once you're there, you're going to stay there, and that's
Right.
not necessarily the case.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I had gotten down to like 225 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about, just that mindset that you had at that point to be on a stage working towards it for so many years,
Yeah.
thinking about, of course, where you once were, you know,
Hmm.
physically, mentally, to be on that stage at that particular time. Talk to us about how you felt in that moment, that day, all of it.
Oh well, that day I was nervous. That was definitely the main emotion, because it actually takes more than just the look. You have to actually be able to pose and to show your muscular structures and all that, with the various poses. So, and the poses need to be essentially on point. So the look is one thing, but the poses can make or break you, and those poses really essentially help to determine how the judges will place you. Um, First show, super nervous. I didn't place nearly where I wanted to place. In fact, I placed last place in every every division that I took part in. So that initially had me down for about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. I'm like, I can't believe I wasted my time doing this. But my trainer's like, dude, that was not a waste. If anything, you should be learning from this. You look great. You look phenomenal. You deserve to be up there. You just need to tweak some things moving forward. And I said, you know what, you're right. I'm tripping.
Mhm. Right.
But of course, when you enter a competition, you want to do your very best, and you want to, of course, get the highest prize that you can. But that just wasn't in the stars for me, and that's totally fine. That was totally fine. Um, so yeah, I definitely felt nervous, but I also felt really accomplished as well. My oldest son, who's 25, he's really into fitness right now, and I'm so proud of him. And he looks great. But my oldest son, he's always been an athlete, so he's played basketball his whole life. So he's always kind of had a slender build, and now he has muscle on top of that slender build, so he looks amazing. Um, and I tell him I'm glad that he picked up that bug right now, because once he continues that, he's going to look even better, especially as he begins to build on more muscle. But I felt really accomplished because I went from fat to fit over the age of 40.
Hmm. That is an amazing accomplishment.
Yes. So going from fat to fit over the age of 40, married, kids, career. At the time, I worked at the College of Pharmacy. So I was a clinical associate professor of pharmacy practice. So my career was pretty demanding. I had to publish, I had to practice, I had to teach. So having to do all those things in the midst of,
Hmm.
trying to transform your body, I might be a little bit biased, but that's really impressive compared
Yeah,
to a person who is
I
in their
agree.
20s
I
and
agree.
doesn't have any of those other confounders going
Exactly.
on.
Exactly. Life is much different, in your 40s versus your 20s. So yes.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it gave me that sense of accomplishment, and it really made me say to myself, if I can do it, that sounds so cliche. I'm about to say it anyway. If I could do it, anyone could do
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
But it's a cliche thing, but there's so much truth to it though. I mean, because you know,
Hmm.
when we look at ourselves and the things that we have to deal with and the things that we have to, work through, and then we actually have a goal, we set our mind to accomplishing the goal, and then we accomplish it. Looking at
Hmm.
everything that we have to withstand,
Hmm.
it makes it such a grounded statement to say that if I
Hmm.
can do it, you can do it. So it is, but it's not at the same time. It's really not.
Right.
Um, would you say that, when you had, accomplished this goal that you have for yourself,
Mhm.
that it really invigorated you to challenge yourself in other areas of your life, to set out for
Oh,
more and to accomplish more for yourself?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It definitely gave me that energy and that charge to seek out the next opportunity. And that has been manifested in terms of my career. So, like I mentioned, I worked as a faculty member for a college of pharmacy. I'm no longer doing that. I transitioned, well, actually, about 3 years ago into the pharmaceutical drug industry. So I did that. And that in and of itself, trying to make that transition took 2 years. So that's another, I guess, example of me being diligent and persistent, because that
Consistent.
was a
Okay.
whole 2 year process.
Mm-hmm.
And the interview for this particular role was completely different than any other role that I've interviewed for previously. So I really kind of had to learn a brand new style of interviewing and, creating my CV and resume and all that. That was completely different. So it challenged me there. Um, it challenged me, I guess, in terms of, let's see, my fraternity, right? So I mentioned that I was really active there.
Mm-hmm.
That fell off. Now I'm, I guess, super active. So right now I serve as a state director um, for my frat. I didn't come back when I initially got back active. That was so not on my
Right.
radar,
Right.
but it really challenged me to want to kind of move differently within the fraternity. And so I just kind of involved myself in different leadership opportunities. So when the opportunity came up for me to, take over as state director, um, I interviewed for the process, submitted my application, and was accepted. So I'm not totally sure what the equivalent of that is in the land of Alpha Phi Alpha, but so state director here in Indiana, I oversee all the chapters, operations of all the chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So that in
Wow.
and of itself, it's it's an interesting role, and it's forcing me to really hone in on my leadership styles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a
Yeah.
huge believer in transformative leadership and servant leadership. So it's really forcing me to hone in on those styles.
Mm-hmm.
It's forcing me to deal with conflict in a way that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe if I was outside on the streets, I may handle it a little bit differently compared
Yeah.
to
Yes.
this.
Yes. 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 I know what you mean. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely causing me to think about how I move and how I say things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's forced me to kind of think about other aspects as well, different things that I want to learn and try out,
Mm-hmm.
uh, especially now. So I'll be 50 years old this year, and there's just so many more things that I want to do in terms of travel, in terms of trying out different things. So 2017 was definitely an eye-opening experience for me physically, but it's definitely helped me to evolve in different ways that I didn't even consider
Mm-hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
that time.
Mm-hmm. And we're
And
talking. I'm
it's
sorry.
forced me to, no, you're fine. And it's forced me to want to inspire other black men.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say anyone, but I'll say specifically black men. It's really inspired me to want to do that. Um, it's like I said, we can be so stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we can be kind of complacent in terms of how we feel and how we view things. So it's really forced me, or it's really encouraged me to want to inspire others to achieve the greatness that I know that we have. It's
Mm-hmm.
there. It's just laying dormant
Mm-hmm.
because of life responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking like in the span of uh, I don't know, 7 to 8 years, you've just made such a transformation within yourself, and to see it just kind of gravitate into something that is just so much bigger than you could have even imagined. Uh,
Hmm.
that's amazing. I can definitely see, people being inspired. The young men that you are, inspiring to do better for themselves and to, you know, you know,
Yep.
expose that potential ability.
Yep.
That's really, really important, for you to do. And I mean, in the span of what you just shared, I mean, you didn't go into detail with like a lot of specifics with your schooling with your PharmD degree and that program. But I mean, on top of all of that, I mean, it seems like everything that you have shared in your journey has required a lot of persistence and a lot of just determination to see through. So when you interact with these individuals who you can kind of see those similar patterns from where you used to be, what type of conversations are you having with these people? And
Hmm.
I guess for this matter, for anybody that's listening,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is kind of experiencing what you used to experience. What did you share with those people that you do come in contact with, and the ones that are listening? What would you share with them, to help inspire them?
Yeah. I'm kind of blunt almost. It's like because I've heard all the excuses because I gave the excuses.
Mhm.
you know, I'm blunt, but I also try to be sensitive too, right? So, um, like I said, there's a lot of things I feel like us black males, Gen Xers, we have to unlearn as it relates to being expressive and being communicative and just
Mhm.
saying what's really on your mind. So, I try to convey that information in a way that shows that I've once been there, but I'm also letting you know that it's okay to do. And
Mhm.
I want to give you the space to do it. So that trust factor and, having the other person being considered a safe person, a safe zone to convey that information definitely helps out. So you can relate to that individual in a way that, he's going to understand and you're demonstrating safety. Then, you got that brother's attention and he'll be more apt to open up. So that's really kind of the approach that I take. And I'm sure you can attest to this as well. Us black men, we can be very guarded,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely, yes.
very guarded. And, so you have to gain trust in
Mhm.
order for us to just really kind of reveal what's on our minds. Once you gain that trust, you're good. But the moment you break that trust, you only get one chance.
Mhm.
If you break it that one chance,
Mhm.
that's it. That's pretty
Yeah,
much a wrap. It's going
yeah,
to take an act of Congress, well,
yeah.
no, an act of Jesus to get things to come back around.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I'm just all about just giving brothers that safe, comfortable zone to be like, hey, man, I get it, and this is why I get it. This is where I used to
Hmm.
be. This is how I used to think, and it's
Hmm.
okay. So now that you've expressed it, let's talk about solutions.
Right, right. So
Mm-hmm.
the listener that's listening
Yep.
and is going through that, what advice would you give them, uh, based on your journey? Uh, Not just with the weight, but I think just with, setting goals and accomplishing things. What's something that you would inspire them to shoot for?
Oh wow, that's a big question, Dr. Green. Let's see. I would say you got to start with being real about
Mm,
um, the length of time it takes to accomplish something.
hmm.
We have this microwave mentality,
Yeah.
and depending on what that specific goal is, you really got to say, "Hey, look, this is gonna take a little while.
Yeah.
This is going to take a while." As it relates to fitness, I tell guys, I'm like, in the beginning, this is gonna suck. In the beginning, you're gonna feel worse than how you probably feel right now.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Is you're gonna hurt, you're gonna feel uncomfortable, you're gonna feel like you're gonna be sore, you are gonna feel like you can't do whatever it is you're doing. But it's important to recognize that, you know, it's temporary and the struggle is temporary.
Yeah.
And even if you have a failure amongst that struggle, it's okay. That failure shouldn't suggest you just abort the mission altogether. That failure should suggest, okay, yeah, I came across this, but I know not to do this anymore. How can I move differently?
Mhm.
So I'm huge on trying to get brothers to understand trusting the process, whatever that process is, whether it be with fitness, but whether it be with a job search, whether it be
Mhm.
with, trying to navigate a difficult situation, just trusting the process and realizing that not everything's going to be a
Mhm.
straight line and being upfront about that, um, and anticipate possible failures.
Mhm.
Okay, a failure doesn't mean, like I said, abort the mission completely. A
Right.
failure just means you just need to redirect and find a alternative route. There's too much construction going on this road, but that don't mean you turn around and go home.
Right.
That means you just go a different direction. You
Right.
detour.
Exactly. Yeah. Love that. Love that. What
Yeah.
would you say if you could think about, I'm pretty sure in having this conversation, I brought up probably a lot of past memories of just that journey and everything else. What would you say was the most challenging, most difficult challenge for you throughout that entire part of your life?
I guess it really depends on which journey we're talking about, but I guess I can speak in generalities. Um, the biggest challenge would be just having that belief in yourself that you can do it,
Mhm.
because it's so easy to say when times get tough. It's so easy to say, "Nah, I'm good." It's
Yeah.
so easy to find an excuse to bail
Yeah.
out.
Yes. Yes, it is.
It's so easy,
Mhm.
and it's like, especially if you have children,
Mhm.
you want to teach your children to press forward without automatically saying, "I can't do it." So if you want to tell your child that, you need to do that exact same thing, right? So it's all about, you know, and sometimes I have to remind myself of things as well, practicing what you preach
Mhm.
and reminding folks that, in order to grow, it's going to be uncomfortable, but staying within that comfort zone, you're not, yeah, it feels great because this is what you know, but
Right.
you're not going to grow. Growth requires you to get to be uncomfortable and
Mhm.
to do things that you haven't done before. And they may feel awkward, but you got to do it.
Mhm.
You absolutely have to do it. So, you know, the biggest challenge would be staying on course and realizing that, you know, the discomfort is necessary in order
Mhm.
to get to where you ultimately need to go.
Yeah.
It's not going to feel good.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
may be some physical bruising, even some mental bruising, but you got
Mhm.
to press forward and think big
Yeah.
picture.
Absolutely. One last question for you. What is one word that personifies who you are?
um, Last year, my word was discipline, right? So I wanted to make sure that I was disciplined in all aspects. And I felt like I was able to accomplish that. This year, my focus is organization. So I got a lot going on. And I realized that I need to get a bit more organized because I've been operating under organized chaos. and I've been getting by, but I need to develop better organizational skills. And it
Mhm.
just is that's just basically it. Just making sure that I'm organized in how I move, making sure my desk is organized. Let's start there.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Important to have the desk organized. You-
Yeah. And
you-
my office as a whole need to be organized.
right,
That's
right.
going to help my mood in terms of me being productive.
Hmm.
If I'm in a space that's in a disarray,
Oh yeah.
then
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
it's not going to happen.
If it's dysfunctional, it's not
Hmm.
a productive space for you. But you didn't add this word. You've mentioned it throughout the interview, but I'm gonna throw in persistent too, because
Okay. Yeah.
all of
Absolutely.
those areas that you have shared with us today, it require a great deal of persistence. And so I think that's another word that I'm going to just volunteer uh,
I'll take it.
to be something that personifies you. Dr. Antoine Jenkins, thank you so very much for joining tonight. We really appreciate all of the information and the vulnerability to kind of just share your journey with us. And I know that a lot of people have watched and listened to this and really just been inspired to look at themselves and transform themselves and take some of the keys that you used and
Hmm.
to use it into their lives as well. So I thank you so much for sharing on this platform. If individuals wanted to follow you moving forward, how would they do so?
Sure. So I'm on all things. Well, not all things. I'll say most things social media.
Okay.
Antoine Jenkins. So that's Antoine. There's many ways of spelling Antoine, but that's one way that people mispronounce all the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
time. So Antoine Jenkins on most things social media. Really active on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and Blue Sky. Follow me on Blue Sky because I've been on there for a minute. I ain't got no followers.
I don't even know what I don't even know what that is. What is Blue Sky? What is that?
Oh, it's a new social media platform. It looks like X,
Okay.
honestly. People
Okay.
who are migrating from X are moving to Blue Sky.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming it's like Twitter. Is it kind of like the
Yep,
old school? Okay. That's because
yep,
in my mind, it's like X is still Twitter. So yeah. Okay.
yep,
All right.
yep, exactly.
Um, so one last thing. What's something that you're grateful for today?
Oh wow. One thing that I'm grateful for, a lot of little things. Um, but I'm gonna sound cliche again. I'm breathing.
Yeah.
I got a pulse.
Hmm. Hmm.
Health is the greatest wealth that any one of us can have. I mean, don't get me wrong. Money, of course, will make things a little bit easier,
Yeah.
but as long as you're in great health, you're winning. You're batting a million.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I have prior classmates of mine or friends who are either passed away or are actually dealing with real life stuff like different cancers, prostate cancers, things of that sort. And these are people that are in my age range or people that I grew up with. So every day I'm thankful for, just the ability to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. If I were to think of something today, I would just think I'm grateful for family. I'm grateful for uh just the love that, family can provide and,
Hmm.
just being able to, reach out to people and just have that relationship. I think that's really, really important for me today. Just really
Oh, yeah.
valuing the importance of family and relationship with them. I would say that.
That's
But
important.
thank you again for joining, Doc. I really appreciate it. For everybody that's watching this show, please make sure that you are following me on all my social media platforms. Go to my website. You can go to YouTube, subscribe to the page. You can watch this episode and many other episodes as well. And please come back again next week. We're going to have another amazing guest, another amazing show, amazing topic. So have a great evening and have a great weekend.